Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 535 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not only ask you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, we have a lot to talk about. Week 4 of the NFL season, there was a lot to talk about. Also going to talk about some baseball. Also going to talk about some WNBA. Also going to talk about some college football. We had a very active weekend in sports. And I think it's only right that we start and acknowledge where I was wrong. Obviously, I don't think I'm wrong. I can't be wrong in the grand scheme of things because my prediction hasn't been proven to be wrong yet. And that obviously is yet another year I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl. And yet another year, as we go into week 4, it's looking like my prediction was hella wrong. Confidence is a crazy thing. Confidence is one of the only things where you preach the importance of self-confidence. And you preach the importance of being able to build and draw your confidence from yourself. In fact, the saying is, if you let somebody else dictate or deter your confidence, then you're not necessarily the most confident person. And how you should let nobody else dictate your confidence. I always find that interesting. Because while I agree with it, we can't sit here and say outside factors don't enhance or decrease our confidence. We can't say that things that have absolutely nothing to do with the inner functions of ourselves don't have an impact on our confidence. When I look at this Baltimore Ravens team, more specifically, when I look at Lamar Jackson, he radiates confidence. Lamar Jackson knows how good he is. The world knows how good Lamar Jackson is. Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'll even go down as saying that if Lamar Jackson stopped playing today, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. If Lamar Jackson stopped playing today, he's the greatest dual threat quarterback we've ever seen. If Lamar Jackson stopped playing today, you can argue that he's a top 10 to top 15 quarterback we've ever seen. That's the resume that Lamar Jackson has built, even without playoff and Super Bowl success. So it's not surprising that we're talking about Lamar Jackson being a confident person. But you know the saying that a Chrysler 300 looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up? Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Lamar Jackson is fraudulent. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that Lamar Jackson doesn't deserve all the accolades and doesn't deserve all the praise that he gets. But what I'm saying is this. Lamar Jackson is not the only quarterback in the league. The Baltimore Ravens isn't the only team in the league that we heap this amount of praise on. We also talk about the Buffalo Bills. We also talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. We also talk about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals sometimes. So when Lamar Jackson goes up against a team like the Chiefs, goes up against a team like the Bills, that's your time to shine. That's your time to say, I'm actually not a Clarkson 300. I'm a Phantom. In fact, we're looking eye to eye. It's not I'm looking up at you or I'm looking at all your accolades and I have nothing. No, we're looking eye to eye. Those head-to-head matchups are the matchups when you have to show, okay, this is me. I'm just not a bottom-feeding team. Or I'm just not a person that just feeds on lesser teams. And yet again, for I don't know how many times in a row now, the Kansas City Chiefs got the better of both the Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens 37-20. Now, you can say Lamar Jackson was hurt. You know, Lamar Jackson left the game, I think, in the third quarter with a hamstring injury. And when he left the game, I think they were only down 10. You can say that there was a bunch of people that got hurt. Roquan Smith got hurt. Marlon Humphreys got hurt. Nate Wiggins got hurt. Kyle Van Noy was already hurt. Meta BK was already hurt. There's Zaire Alexander was already hurt. Obviously, there's a mountain of injuries, but they weren't playing good. Obviously, Meta BK didn't play at all, and we're going to talk about him in a second. Zaire didn't play at all. Kyle Van Noy didn't play at all, but the rest of the people played, including Lamar Jackson. And they didn't. I don't agree with a lot of the takes that Nick Wright says when he talks about Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Nick Wright is a staunch Chiefs fan because he's from Kansas City, I believe. So he's always going to ride for the Chiefs. And I'm not here disrespecting or negating his, and when I say his, I mean Nick Wright's integrity to talking about the sport. I think he's a phenomenal analyst. And I've never really, I'm not going to say never, but I've always disagreed and pushed back when he talks about the Baltimore Ravens, especially Lamar Jackson. Because I always feel like there's a bit of yeah, but in his analysis when we talk about Lamar Jackson. But I say all that to say this. I agree wholeheartedly with Nick Wright when he says Lamar Jackson picks the worst, or picks, I say it like this. Lamar Jackson seems to always have his worst games against either Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs or Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Lamar, going into Sunday, Lamar Jackson hadn't turned the ball over once this year. Now, obviously, that stat is a tough stat to keep up with, but you leave the game with 2 turnovers now, and a bad interception, and a fumble that you run into your offensive lineman. Which brings me to my first part, or brings back my first part, confidence. I'm never going to say that Lamar Jackson is scared. I'm never going to say that Lamar Jackson is shook. But it seems like his confidence gets rattled when he goes up against someone like a Patrick Mahomes, someone like a Josh Allen. Now, do I think that, the loss in the playoffs last year and in game 1 of this year is on Lamar Jackson? No. I think Lamar Jackson played a phenomenal game both times. However, I am also not realizing, but it doesn't escape my mind that Lamar Jackson had 2 turnovers in the playoffs. It doesn't escape my mind that there was a couple times where Lamar Jackson could have extended drives. I don't know if it was play calling or what, but they were unable to do that against the Bills. We talked about last week how the Baltimore Ravens looked like they were scared. It looked like they got punked against the Detroit Lions. And I thought that there was going to be extra motivation going into this game against Kansas City Chiefs because the last time we saw the Baltimore Ravens, they got embarrassed. On top of the fact of the last time they played the Kansas City Chiefs was the Isaiah Likely big toe incident. That wasn't a catch at the end of the game. They lost. And I talked about last week how we were not used to seeing a Baltimore Ravens team get punked, get pushed around, especially at home. This is yet another first for the Baltimore Ravens. Because I don't think I've ever seen a Baltimore Ravens team this unprepared for a team. This is yet another game where the Baltimore Ravens defense was god-awful. I know Xavier Worthy came back. However, Patrick Mahomes, 270 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was going crazy. But I can't for the life of me unsee how unprepared the Baltimore Ravens were for the defense that the Kansas City Chiefs brought to the game, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Because defensive coordinator Spagnuolo for the Kansas City Chiefs does the same exact thing every time they play the Baltimore Ravens. They always bring the blitz. They have a spy, and they bring the blitz as many times as they can because they feel, which has proven to be correct, when you rush this offense, when you rush Lamar Jackson, when you make him have to rush his decision-making, he's not the great Lamar Jackson that he's been, which showed in an interception and a fumble this game. That was the same exact game plan when they played in the AFC Championship. That's the same exact game plan that they had a year ago in Game 1 in Arrowhead. Yet and still, you thought that something was going to be different? You had to think something was going to be different because, again, they did not look prepared for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Mind you, Chris Jones came in at the last second because he was coming back from a funeral. I think that it would almost be naive to now think that my pick for a Super Bowl, which I obviously picked the Baltimore Ravens, is still a solid pick. Because on top of the fact of the injuries continue to mount, again, right now as I can think, Lamar Jackson's hurt. Metabike, he's out for the season with a neck injury. And the way that they're talking, I don't know if he's going to play again. I pray that he does if he wants to, obviously, but he's out for the season. That's their best pass rusher, out for the season. Roquan Smith's going to be out for a few weeks. Marlon Humphreys is going to be out for a few weeks. I don't think it's at the time of this recording, it hasn't been announced, but I'm almost sure Nate Wiggins is going to be out for a few weeks. Kyle Van Noy is still out. Zaire Alexander's still out. Isaiah Likely did come back this game, but he was limited because, again, this was his first game back. The injuries continue to mount. The Baltimore Ravens are starting to turn into the 49ers. Which brings me to my next point. I always talk about the Bengals when I talk about this. I always talk about the 49ers when I talk about this. But this is what I'm talking about when I said, and I said this 2 years ago. I said this was the time. I know it's almost a definition of insanity when I continue to pick the Ravens, but I said it when they 14-2. They were at home in the AFC Championship. I said this was the chance. This was the chance. As much as I like Lamar Jackson, because again, I'm not even a Baltimore Ravens fan. I know it may seem like it, but I like Lamar Jackson. As much as I'm a Lamar Jackson fan, as much as good as he is, I said it. The Super Bowl window doesn't stay open forever. I know you always have a shot with Lamar Jackson there, but a shot doesn't necessarily mean the door is open. And now you look through 4 weeks, this team looks nothing like a Super Bowl caliber team. This team might not even make the playoffs. The only thing that's kind of keeping them afloat is how bad the AFC North has started outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This roster is too talented to not be a Super Bowl contender. But yet here we are. Which brings me to my next point. Lamar Jackson saved John Harbaugh's job back in 2015, I believe? 2017, one of them two. Remember, they were on the brink of firing him until you have an MVP. You have one of the most electrifying players we've ever seen. John Harbaugh was about to be up out of here. Being unprepared, that's not a player's thing. That's a coaching staff thing. The fact that John Harbaugh essentially, after the game, wants to take shots at his offensive coordinator and Todd Monken and his defensive coordinator, Zach Orr, two people that you appointed. There's a lot wrong with this team. And as much as I talk about noise, this has been a very noisy regular season. This is yet another game where you essentially, not the other team, you, John Harbaugh and this coaching staff, essentially take Derrick Henry and make him a non-factor. And that's another thing. I know this, I'm a PS this. This is yet another game where Derrick Henry was effective, yet you took him out the game. You essentially negated his effectiveness. This wasn't an enormous game for the Baltimore Ravens, especially coming off of a loss to the Detroit Lions. This was an important game for the psyche of Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson's only beaten Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs once in his career. One time. This was a psyche to be like, okay, at this point we're 1-2. We can get our season back on track. This was a psychological game. This was an important game. And not only did the Baltimore Ravens as a whole fail, but now their season is on the brink. And while this isn't the easiest part of, or the hardest part of the schedule is essentially behind them, they still have the Chargers coming up. They still have important. I mean, you have to play the Packers, I believe, later this year. They essentially have to win 10 of the next 13 games. Oh, and I forgot again to mention that Lamar Jackson is dealing with an injury. There's a bunch. There's a bunch of important people. Their defense has already been just god awful, and now their two best defenders, three of their four best defenders are possibly going to be out for a couple weeks. Kyle Hamilton's the lone one. Actually, 4 of their 5, because I forgot about Nnamdi Adebike, who's out for the season. So Roquan Smith's going to be out. Nate Wiggins is probably going to be out. Marlon Humphreys is going to be out. And Adebike is going to be out. So all you have is Kyle Hamilton and a bunch of people, because I don't know what the hell Zaire Alexander's doing. Obviously, I'm not going to jump ship because it is what it is. But it's almost naive of me to think that this team, that every single time they go up against a top-tier team, at least this year and in the playoffs for the duration of Lamar Jackson's career so far, has shown that they are, a lot of the times, at their own fault, a step behind. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Xavier Worthy came back, and Xavier Worthy had 2 rushes for 38 yards, and he had 5 catches for 83 yards. The defense got torched again. This is yet another game where the defense gave up 35-plus yards, or 35-plus points. You have the worst defense in the league. All the smoke that we were giving the Cincinnati Bengals last year, right now that's the Baltimore Ravens. So as much as, I respect them, if that means Zach Orr got to go, I don't know how much they listen to John Harbaugh either. I think the coaching staff needs to go, but that's me. Because it looks like, obviously it's still a long season. We're in the week 4 now, or week 5, but as of right now, it looks like not only are the Baltimore Ravens not Super Bowl contenders, but they don't even look like playoff contenders. So we'll see. But congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs for beating the Cincinnati Bengals. Kansas City Chiefs for beating the Baltimore Ravens 37-20. For the life of me, I don't understand how a professional league of grown professionals can play an entire game plus overtime and allow a tie to happen. I don't understand how you can leave a game, how there isn't any, there's rules in place for the playoffs, but there's no rules in place for, okay, regular season, we have a tie. How are you not finishing that game? Or how are you okay? How are the rules okay with the game finishing in a tie? That's what we got with the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys finished the game and overtime tied 40-40. This was a very important game, which they knew it was an important game because they had it on Sunday Night Football. Michael Parsons returning to the Dallas Cowboys after being traded just a week before the season. And we proceeded to have essentially the best game I've seen Dak Prescott play in a while. This might be the best game I've ever seen Dak Prescott play. No, yes, he's had better numbers other games, but when we talk about important game, when we talk about important catches, when we talk about making the throw, Dak Prescott did that every single time this game. There wasn't one of you know, when we look at Dak Prescott, he probably wants that throw back. I don't think there was one this game. There were some drops, but it wasn't on like Dak Prescott. Every single person that was supposed to get the ball, he threw it to him. George Pickens, 8 receptions, 11 targets. He dropped 2 or 3 of them. Was eight receptions for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ferguson had 7 receptions for 40 yards. Jalen Tolbert had 4 receptions for 61 yards. He had one of the best. He had to cut, like Dak Prescott was on the run. He threw it. He had to come back and get it, and then the toe tap. This was one of the best games I have seen Dak Prescott ever play. And I know I said that Dak Prescott could be, in fact, I think I had him winning the comeback play of the year. This game is one of those games that strengthen that argument. I know that they finish in a tie, but Dak Prescott was the main reason why because the defense was getting torched still. It was the offense. Obviously, you can look at it and say, well, Dak Prescott's best. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The Dallas Cowboys put up 40 points. That's hard to do in the NFL. And they look like, at least offensively, which a lot of people thought going into this season, there's always going to be question marks with the defense, especially when you trade Michael Parsons. But one thing that we said was their offense can be one of the best offenses in football, because even though they didn't have CeeDee Lamb this game, George Pickens still went off. Javonte Williams, 20 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. This was a good offensive game, and the offensive line is starting to – did he get sacked? Yeah, he got sacked once. The offensive line is starting to round into form, which is what we said. We said by the end of the year, the Dallas Cowboys could have one of the best offensive lines in football. They played, at least offensively, they played an exceptional game. They played good enough to win. Dak Prescott had probably his best game I've seen him have as a Dallas Cowboy. Every timely throw that needed to be made, he made it. Which kind of brings me to the Green Bay Packers. Because you give up a 40 board, you let 40 points get put on the board, obviously you were doing something wrong. Obviously the defense wasn't there. The hell was Michael Parsons doing? The hell was we kind of expected from the Dallas Cowboys, because they don't have the best defense. But the Green Bay Packers, I thought the defense was going to be their calling card. I thought the defense was going to be their best option. They got torched. All of Rashad Gary, Michael Parsons, Xavier Worthy, Xavier McKinney, they got torched. The team that I thought, because they got Michael Parsons, because defensively they could be really good, I thought they were going to be Super Bowl bound. No. They could still, but that Super Bowl defense did not come to play this game. I don't think anybody. I don't know if it was the emotions from Micah, but you give up 40 points, that's an issue. And then we have to talk about the end of the game. Because Jordan Love played well too. Only missed 8 throws, 31 for 43. Actually, that's 12. Math, Jalen. That's 12. 3 touchdowns, 337 yards. He played well too. But when I tell you that was the absolute worst clock management I think I've seen in a very long time at the end of that game for the Green Bay Packers. Not just at the end of overtime, but at the end of the regulation. You had time to I don't know why they were so okay with settling for field goals at the end of that game. I've never seen a team be so okay with settling for a tie in my life. Because the Green Bay Packers, if they would have had just a little bit of sense of urgency, they could have very well won this game. In fact, they got lucky for even tying this game because at the end of the game, they just let the clock run and tick and tick and tick and tick. And if it wasn't for Jordan Love throwing the ball and it hitting, if it would have went through the end zone, like through out of bounds, the game would have been over. They would have lost. But because he hit the back of a Cowboys player and it landed in the end zone, they had literally 1 second left. But mind you, they had ample amount of time, not just at the end of the regulation, but at the end of overtime. I have never seen a team botch time management that poorly in a while. Again, it felt like the Dallas Cowboys were trying their hardest to win. And at the end of the game, it felt like the Green Bay Packers were trying their hardest to get a tie. Like they were okay with tying the game. Now, I will say I do like the new overtime rules this year, where it's kind of like, and it's essentially kind of like college football, as in each team gets a chance. But unlike college football, there has to be a winner in that game. There doesn't have to be a winner in the NFL where professionals play. Yeah, that was one of the best games that I've seen in a while. That was for sure the best game of the week. However, that was one of the worst endings I've seen. How you get the highest of heights just to end the way that they end. And a lot of it was just because of poor late game management by the Green Bay Packers. Because if we're being completely honest, if the Green Bay Packers did what they were supposed to do, they could have won this game. They should have won this game. But hey. Oh, and you also saw Jerry Jones take yet another shot at Micah Parsons, saying, this is why I thought that when you look at this game, Dak Prescott was indispensable and Micah Parsons wasn't. We could have just we had no problem letting Micah Parsons go. While Dak played the best game I've seen him play, he still didn't win. So, congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers for finishing 40-40 a tie. Ooh. Let's have the conversation. The Giants got their first win of the season and beat the then undefeated Los Angeles Chargers 21-18. Jackson Dart was the starter, and he played really well. 13 for 20, 110 yards. He had a touchdown, even though he was sacked 5 times. He played really well. 10 carries for 54 yards. Another touchdown. So he had a total of 2 touchdowns. Jackson Dart played good. Everything that you can ask for from Jackson Dart, he gave you. It was a really good game. And he, even though the numbers didn't say it, he outplayed Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert had 2 interceptions, both of which was essentially his fault, and Jackson Dart did not. And I will give credit where credit is due. Quentin Johnston, he has turned himself into a wide receiver 1. I don't know what the hell he did this offseason because he was god-awful, but he is a wide receiver 1 if I've ever seen one. He's been incredible. Shout out to him. But the story of this game is obviously Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, one of the best young wide receivers in the league, tears his ACL, out for the season. And a lot of people were shining light on comparisons to him and Odell Beckham Jr., especially with their tenure in New York, and how Odell Beckham Jr. was one of the best young receivers in the league until he tore his ACL. Both of them, Malik Neighbors and Odell Beckham Jr., both tore their ACL at MetLife Stadium, which brings me to the actual conversation of this game. I've said this time and time again, and I've also said this multiple times about the NFL. Talking gets you nowhere. Talking, some people can talk their heads off, and some people are great at communicating. But it's always actions that show you what they really mean, what they really care about, where their values lie. When you hear the league always talk about player safety and how player safety is the number one thing that they care about. That's what they say almost all the time. We care about player safety. It sounds good. That sounds important. That sounds noble. That sounds, of course, if you're an organization, why wouldn't you care about the safety of your players? But again, talking doesn't. Your actions will always speak louder than your words. So when your words say you care about the players, but your actions say, oh, because of money, because of revenue, we're going to add another game to the season. And now they're thinking about, and there's a good chance that they'll add yet another game. So there might be an 18-game season. I know they say, okay, well, if we have an 18-game season, we're just going to take one of the preseason games away. Yeah, that's cool and all. However, as we're seeing with someone like the Detroit Lions or the Baltimore Ravens, teams don't really play their stars in the preseason. If you take that away or take one game away, now you're forcing them to play a game that they originally wouldn't play. Player safety. Okay. So if you cared so much about player safety, then your actions say, hey, we're going to add a 17-game season, even though all the players were vehemently against it. Now they're saying, hey, we're going to possibly add another game, even though the players are vehemently against it. And one topic that has been loud and front and center when we talk about player safety has been the conditions of the field and how players, almost every player that has played and that is playing, has said, we don't like playing on turf. Because playing on turf opens up the possibility of getting hurt more than playing on grass. There's a different feel playing on grass compared to playing on turf. It's most of the people that got hurt, especially at MetLife Stadium, played on turf. A lot of these ACLs you see that are non-contact that jump up to try to get, that's on turf. The studies are showing that more people tear their ACL on turf than they do in regular grass. But like I said, actions, words. It's much more expensive to keep up grass, especially on a weekly basis. For some of these arenas, especially on a daily basis, because you have colleges that play there, like the Hard Rock Stadium. There's the Miami Hurricanes play there at times. MetLife, they just had a HBCU classic there. It's much more expensive I'll say that it's much more expensive for the upkeep of a grass field than a turf field. We're also talking about a multi-billion-dollar company. So I hope for a speedy recovery and a fully healthy recovery, because we know what ACL tears can do for the careers of a wide receiver, of a player in general. But this is yet another victim to the league being cheap. Now, obviously, yes, if they were playing on grass, the same thing could have happened, but the likelihood of it happening is much lower than it would be playing on turf, because the turf, they just grip on to the cleats. It's not players have all come out and said that it's not good, but the league's not going to change that because of how expensive it's going to be. Oh, but I thought that you just said that they cared more, that they cared about their player safety. Well, I guess when it was only convenient financially, you know. Again, I hope Malik Neighbors is mentally okay, and I hope that he has a speedy recovery. Congratulations to the New York Giants for getting their first win against the LA Chargers, 21-18. Probably one of the best games of the week was the Eagles beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-25. Now, it was looking like we were about to see yet another game-winning drive from Baker Mayfield. In fact, I believe they got damn near to the red zone until Baker Mayfield, unfortunately, threw a pick. And this game was interesting because there was a lot of talk before this game, and there's been a lot of talk for essentially the last two seasons about who people would prefer as a quarterback. Would they prefer Jalen Hurts or would they prefer Baker Mayfield? And I think both, or this game was, you were able to strengthen your argument whatever side you were on. If you would say you would prefer Jalen Hurts over Baker Mayfield, you can say, well, first, they won the game. Two, while he only threw for 130 yards, he did have 2 touchdowns. Like, Jalen Hurts didn't put the team in a poor situation. But if you would say Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts, you could say, yeah, well, Baker Mayfield threw for more than doubled what Jalen Hurts threw for, and also had 2 touchdowns. He also had that interception. One theme that we saw all weekend is when you have a team, when you're close, right? When the teams are close in talent, close in expectation, the little things matter. And one mistake can derail an entire team, can derail an entire game. And as we saw, you can't turn the ball over. Baker Mayfield threw a game-sealing interception at the end of the game. Bucky Irving, if I'm not mistaken, had a turnover. You can't do that. You can't do that. We saw, and we're going to talk about the Colts game in a little bit. We saw that in the Colts game. One or two mistakes can cost you. I don't think that obviously with the score, they only lost by 6 points. I don't like the Eagles aren't that much better than the Buccaneers. It's just the Buccaneers had those mistakes. And mistakes when you're playing up against a team that skilled, that good, and you guys feel like you're looking eye to eye with, those mistakes can kill you. This is also yet another game where A.J. Brown, 9 targets, 2. Okay, so that's kind of. He had 9 targets, 2 receptions for 7 yards. A lot of those 9 targets were uncatchable. They were high above his head. They were low to the ground. A lot of those 9 targets were not catchable. And you hear former players like Chad Ochocinco on Nightcap, shout out to them. They talk about this a lot. The psyche it takes and how tough it is to be a wide receiver and not contribute as much as you would like to. Now, a lot of people say that that's diva mentality or diva mindset because they won the game, but no. You ever been in a group project that you actually care about, that you actually want to do the work, and yet they regulate you to just bring the cups, essentially? They regulate you. No, all you have to do is just put your name and maybe add 1 sentence and you're good to an entire project. Like it's mentally, it's like, damn, why don't you want me to help? It's tough for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith combined for 37 yards, 36 yards, 35 yards, 35 yards. That's tough. Mind you, we're talking about a top 10 and a top 15 wide receivers in the game. That's tough. And I'm not saying that this team isn't going to be great or whatever, and this team can't win without the contributions without the contributions of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but this is the scheme. This is the game plan. This is how they run their game. This is their game plan. Run heavy, which goes back to the argument that you hear with Cam Newton saying Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do much. You already have the best offensive line in football. You have the best running back in football. You don't have to do much, and you're a running quarterback. Like, Jalen Hurts threw 24 times. Didn't crack 150 yards. It's passing the ball because he had 60 yards. He carried the ball 9 times and had 62 yards. So he finished with 192 yards. He didn't even have 200 total yards. And they won. Like, they have one of the best defenses in football. So I feel for A.J. Brown, bro, because it's like you're a top 10 receiver in the league, and you're just being minimized to essentially blocking all the time or just running routes, practicing, because you ain't getting the ball, brother. Yeah. Congratulations. And also, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's kind of being proven what I said in the sense of they are a Super Bowl caliber team. You only lost by 6 points, and you could have won the game if Baker Mayfield didn't throw that late interception. This is a good team. Great team. Great team. And they didn't even have Mike Evans. I want to shout out Emeka Egbuka. This man, 4 receptions for 101 yards. This is a rookie, by the way. I know Bucky Irvin had 5 receptions for 102 yards, but Emeka Ibuka is turning into a he has proven to be a top tier receiver in this league. And it's only been game 4. Shout out to them, man. But shout out to the Eagles for beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-25. Okay. Look, I understand that it's very hard for people to admit they're wrong. It's very hard for people to admit that maybe they don't have all the options. Or maybe their original thought isn't the best thought. I get that, you know. I understand it's not always peaches and cream. I get it. But how long are we going to do this song and dance? How long are we going to do this rigmarole with the Cleveland Browns? The Detroit Lions beat the Cleveland Browns 34-10. Yes, you're playing against one of the best teams in the league. But, bruh, Joe Flacco, yet another game where he threw 0 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. You know it's bad when Joe Flacco played essentially the entire game, and Dylan Gabriel played, I think, maybe a drive. And they both had the same passer rating of 39.3. Dylan Gabriel at 39.6. Look, I get it. It's almost naive to question at this point why Shedeur Sanders isn't playing. Cool. I think the bigger question is, why is Joe Flacco still playing? I know that a lot of people, and I'm one of those people, talk about growth and talk about how you want the best for your quarterbacks. You want the best for the people coming up. And you don't want to put, rookie quarterbacks, you don't want to put rookies in general in a bad situation. However, when I'm looking at this Cleveland Browns situation, if you're going to lose with Dylan Gabriel as your quarterback, if you're going to lose with Shedeur Sanders as your quarterback, okay, because you're not winning with Joe Flacco as your quarterback. Joe Flacco is old. A lot of this, I'm not going to say no fault to Joe Flacco. It's just his age. He's old, and he's not even a mobile quarterback. And the offensive line is not great. So it's like, you're already playing behind the 8 ball. I don't understand. If you're going to lose the game, why not lose it with a young, talented player and Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders? Why are we still playing this rigmarole and thinking that Joe Flacco is the guy to get it done? He clearly is not. A lot of those 3 sacks were on Joe Flacco. Both of those interceptions were on Joe Flacco. You're losing with Joe Flacco. You're losing regardless. So why not lose with a young quarterback? Get him the reps. And Deion Sanders said it. I don't remember who he was talking to. It might have been Club Shay Shay. I don't remember. But he was like, I've never been on the bench and thought to myself, I learned a lot today. I got better today and not played. Again, I think at this point, the Cleveland Browns have showed they are going to try their hardest not to play Shedeur Sanders. Cool. If that's your prerogative, if that's what you want to do, go right ahead. My thing is, why are you not playing Dylan Gabriel? Why are we sitting here watching Joe Flacco? You see how quick it was for the Giants to move on from Russell Wilson? Why can't the Cleveland Browns do the same? If you're going to lose just with a better quarterback. And right now, I think Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders is better than Joe Flacco right now. I don't think I don't think if Dylan Gabriel started, I don't think if Shedeur Sanders started, they're not beating the Detroit Lions. Cool. But they didn't beat the Detroit Lions with Joe Flacco starting either. So what are we doing? Congrats to the Detroit Lions for beating the Cleveland Browns 34-10. I've never seen, now actually, the Miami Dolphins got their first win of the season and beat the New York Jets 27-21. First, Tyreek Hill got hurt. Looks like it says he tore his ACL and dislocated. His left leg just got obliterated. He's definitely out for the season. Like I said, torn ACL, dislocated hip, dislocated knee. It's just, yeah. I pray for a speedy recovery. Now, I've never seen someone as visibly happy, visibly jovial that he just sustained a season-ending injury. Now, it could have been just to cheer the fans up, just to cheer his teammates up. He was like, yes. He was clapping. He was, did the thumbs up, was throwing his hands up. Like, he just looked like he won a Super Bowl. I'm not going to play into what it could be. I'm just going to say I've never seen anybody that happy. But to me, I thought the season was over for Miami a while ago. It's definitely over now. I know Darren Waller came back and had the game. Darren Waller came back and had 2 touchdowns. You still have Jalen Waddle, cool, but you don't have your number 1 receiver in Tyreek Hill. That's going to be tough, especially for Tua. I think this game was more about the Jets than the Miami Dolphins. The Jets are already not the best team. They already are playing behind the 8 ball a lot more times than in front of it because you're not the best team. You have a new head coach, you have a new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, you have a new quarterback in Justin Fields. Like they're playing behind the 8 ball. And I would say that sort of like what I was talking about with the Buccaneers and the Eagles, when you're playing a team and you're already not the best, you can't do things to essentially hurt your case. The Jets are 0-4 right now, and if you limit the turnovers, they could be at best 3-1. I think, and you heard Dan Orlowski, who was the one of the color commentators, saying it. This loss is much worse than the Bills' loss. Now the Bills just throttled them, but the Bills are a better team. You hope to be looking at going into this game a 0-3 team eye to eye since you were 0-3, and it's like this is yet another game where they finish with multiple turnovers. I think they had 3 fumbles. And I'm not mistaken, 2 of those fumbles were... Yep. Isaiah Washington, Braylon Allen, and Justin Fields all had a turnover. They all lost those turnovers. Or lost those fumbles. You're not doing yourself any favors. At all. You're already limited offensively because of I was looking at this game and I thought to myself, I don't think Justin Fields can throw the ball downfield that far. A lot of his plays were like 10-yard slants to Garrett Wilson. He did have a huge carry for like 40-something yards and a touchdown, but I don't know, man. The season, I mean, you're 0-4. any chance of a playoff, especially in the AFC North or AFC East, you're pretty much you're not, I don't think you're making the wild card, especially if maybe the Ravens turn around. I don't know, but this is yet another game where you shoot yourself in the foot, and when you're already a team that isn't as talented as another team, that's going to hurt you every single time. So, congratulations to the Dolphins for beating the Jets 27-21. Again, I hope for a speedy recovery for Tyreek Hill. I told you. Okay, let me back up. The Los Angeles Rams handed the Colts their first loss of the season and beat them 27-20. Now, I'm not going to throw away. Okay, I'm not going to throw away the Colts. Daniel Jones had an okay game, 262 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Okay. Jonathan Taylor, okay game, 17 carries for 76 yards. Okay. You were just playing up against a better team. Matthew Stafford threw for 375 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams had 77 rushing yards. Puka Nacua had 13 receptions for 170 yards. Tutu Atwell had the game ceiling. He had 1 reception for 88 yards, and that was the last play of the game. Yeah. I'm not going to throw away the Colts because I think the Colts are still good. I don't think that they are as good as their record says, but they're still a good team. Now, what's homie's name? Have to talk about you, brother. You have to get an ISO. Adonai Mitchell? Bro. You have to, it looked like it was an accident. It looked like he was just trying to reach out. Because what typically happens when people do what he essentially does is they try to celebrate and it's like they put the ball down or they let go of the ball before they cross the end zone, which obviously either then gets picked up by the other team or goes out the back of the end zone, which is essentially a turnover and a touchback. It looked like this instant he was just trying to reach the ball over, which he didn't have to do. I'll say that. But it looked like he was just trying to reach the ball over, and in the midst of him doing that, he was trying to switch hands, and it fumbled out of his hand and then went out the back of the end zone. Not a touchdown. They lose by 7. That was the game-changing. That changed the game completely. And a penalty on Mitchell that essentially brought back a touchdown. I think it was holding on him, and it brought back a touchdown. It was a tough day for Adonai Mitchell, which is why I'm not going to kill the Colts. I'm not going to bash the Colts because they could have won this game. But yeah, people are calling for Adonai Mitchell's head, man. I'm like, hey, man, I know it's terrible, but it didn't look like how it usually looks when that play happens. It looks like he just accidentally dropped the ball. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. But congratulations to the Rams for beating the Colts 27-20. The game out in Dublin that happened at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-27. This was the best game DK Metcalf has had as a Steeler. 5 receptions for 126 yards. I know Calvin Austin went out, and at the time of this recording, I don't know the severity of his injury, but I hope that he has a speedy recovery. Kenneth Gainwell had 19 carries for 99 yards. Aaron Rodgers only missed 4 passes, 18 for 22, 200 yards, 1 touchdown. This game was more about the defense and DK Metcalf than anyone else. It's like the defense has been struggling. They've been getting torched, and they were able to hold a red-hot Vikings team to 100 or to only 21 points. Even though Carson Wentz did go for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns, he did have 2 interceptions and was sacked 6 times. And Justin Jefferson, 10 receptions for 126 yards. Jordan Addison, 4 receptions for 114 yards. Yeah, they were getting torched. It's just Carson Wentz had a Carson Wentz game. And you take those 2 interceptions away, who knows? But obviously, if was a fifth, we all be drunk. So congratulations to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also, might I add, is number 1 in the AFC North. They won against the Minnesota Vikings in Dublin, 24-21. Congratulations to them. Oof. Let's get this over with. We don't need to stay on this for long. The Washington Commanders lost to the Atlanta Falcons 34-27. You know what it is? I'm not even mad at Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota didn't play a terrible game. Marcus Mariota is actually a big reason why we only lost by 7. My thing is this. This is yet another game where the defense let us down. I know it may not seem like it, but actually, no, it does seem like it. Bijan Robinson had a total of 181 yards. Bijan Robinson alone, receiving and rushing combined, had 181 yards, on top of Drake May having 110 yards. And Michael Penix, a team, might I add, that just lost 30-0 to the Panthers. Michael Penix had 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is, again, I know Jaden Daniels didn't play. I know Terry McLaurin didn't play. Again, I'm not even mad at Marcus Mariota. He didn't play a terrible game. It's our defense let us down again. It seems like when we get into big games or we get into games like this where on paper we should win, our defense lays an egg. Yet another where we let a running back kill us. Bijan Robinson combined had 181 yards. Drake May had 110 yards. Kyle Pitts had 70 yards and a touchdown. Like I said against the Green Bay Packers, I am out on the Washington Commanders being a Super Bowl caliber team, not because they're not good, but because their defense is pretty much the same as last year. Yo, Marshawn Lattimore, bro. You know, I was extremely excited when I heard or when Washington acquired Marshawn Lattimore a year ago. I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, obviously he's not in his prime, but we still have a top-tier corner in the league. We are going to be he's going to be a defensive pillar for us. Marshawn Lattimore has been by far our worst defender. Period. Like, I don't understand at the time of this recording how Marshawn Lattimore is still on this team. It felt like every time Drake May caught the ball, Marshawn Lattimore was in the picture, coming into the picture because he was beat so bad. Boy, Marshawn Lattimore, dog. Getting cooked. Congratulations, Atlanta, for beating Washington 34-27. This was one of those games where you are happy that you got the win, but you don't feel good about it. The Buffalo Bills beat the Saints 31-19, not because they didn't win. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills did what they were supposed to do. Josh Allen threw his first interception of the year as well. But my thing is this. I feel worse about the Bills defense than I did going into this game. Now, the Bills also did give up 40 points. Maybe Marshawn Lattimore got no. Did give up 40 points against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, that's the Baltimore Ravens. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. You gave up 19 points. Now, I know 19 is not a lot, but you gave up 19 points to the Saints, who are devoid of scoring. On top of that, a lot of it was Spencer Rattler. Alvin Kamara, let me see. Alvin Kamara had 70 yards and 15 carries. Like, it's Kendre Moore, 11 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. I think they're going to be okay. They have one of the easiest schedules, which is why I think that they shouldn't worry about not winning the 1 seed. That is the Buffalo Bills. But this is yet another week where their defense was pretty lackluster, I'll say. But you're up against the Saints, so shouldn't have to worry that much. Congratulations for beating the Saints 31-19. Boy, look. The Jacksonville Jaguars beat the San Francisco 49ers 26-21. The 49ers are dealing with injuries out the wazoo. Even though Brock Purdy did come back and throw for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, he did have 2 interceptions. Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries for 69 yards. Christian McCaffrey was also their leading receiver with 6 receptions for 62 yards. Look, I don't know how you're going to be able to keep this up. Because on top of your defense, obviously Nick Bosa out for the season, losing a lot of the people that they lost to free agency. I don't know how you're going to be able to keep this up. You can't keep this up. You're not good enough. I know they're 3-1 now. You're not good enough for 2 interceptions. Like, it's just. On top of that, the Jaguars didn't even play that great. Outside of Travis Etienne, 9 carries for 124 yards. And this game, it kind of confirmed what a lot of people have been saying. Look, I think that Travis Hunter should play primarily defense. I think they should make him like his premier position is defense and maybe sprinkle a little offensive packages. Right now, it feels like it's 50-50, like down the middle. Like he's playing half of the defensive snaps and half of the offensive snaps. Well, he hasn't really, again, this is the NFL. He hasn't really been able to leave an imprint. And he hasn't looked great. Outside of, again, I think that he should focus mainly on the defense and sprinkle some offensive plays, not just play as much. Like it's kind of feels like a, it kind of feels like a 50-50 thing here, and that's not working. On top of the fact that this is yet another game, even though it got negated by a hold, yet another game where Trevor Lawrence threw an interception. Again, it got called back, but my God, bro. They're 3-1, so I guess I can't say much, but yeah, bro. Like something's got to give. Maybe it did give because, again, they did beat the 49ers. So shout out to the Jacksonville Jaguars for beating the 49ers 26-21. The Bears beat the Vegas Raiders 25-24. They blocked the last. I don't know what it is about special teams this year, but it seems like almost every week, multiple teams are getting their punts, kick returns, like getting it blocked. I'm not understanding. What is it about blocking? Like, what are we doing here? Whether it's a extra point, whether it's a field goal, whether it's a punt, it's just Ashton Genty had his best game, 21 carries for 139 yards. He also had he had 3 touchdowns on the day. 2 of them were receiving touchdowns. Geno Smith, yet another game where he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, 3 interceptions to 2, and he only had 117 passing yards. Jesus. But this game was decided because the game winning kick was blocked. I don't get it, bro. There seems like multiple games a week a kick is getting blocked. Caleb Williams had an okay game, 212 yards, So, shout out to the Bears for beating the Raiders 25-24. The other game that we had on Monday Night Football was the Denver Broncos beating the Cincinnati Bengals 28-3. The fact that you didn't have a combined total of 200 yards. Look at Washington, for example. When your starting quarterback goes out, no, you're not expected to keep the same amount of talent, keep the same amount of energy, keep the same amount of success as you would with your starter there. There's no one that should think that Marcus Mariota is going to play on the same level as Jaden Daniels. If that's the case, there's no point in Jaden Daniels. My thing is, when your starting quarterback goes out, your offense, your team in general, shouldn't just turn into the void of talent. Your team shouldn't then forget how to function. You still have T. Higgins. You still have Jamar Chase. And your offense can't even crack 200 yards. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins had 3 receptions for 32 yards. Jamar Chase had 5 receptions for 23 yards. Your entire receiving night, your entire receiving core had 125 yards. Your entire rushing core had 53. So you had a total of 177 yards. 178 yards. I know Jake Browning's not that good, but this entire team is just forgot how to be an NFL team with Joe Burrow being out. That is a problem, especially when you pay 3 people most of your money and now 2 of them can't even get active. And then you lost to a team in the Denver Broncos who, this was a bad game to watch, but J.K. Dobbins had 101 rushing yards. Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix had 326 yards. He was killing them.
I know you can say, well, Patrick Surtain locked up. Okay, well, you can lock up Jamar Chase. What about T. Higgins? How does he only got 32 yards? Joe Burrow goes out, and the Cincinnati Bengals don't understand how to operate offensively. At period. Chase Brown, 10 carries for 40 yards. And your defense already sucks, so yeah. Shout out to the Broncos. Uh that man said, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. We ass right now. That's what the Houston Texans beat the Titans 26-0. Mind you, this is the same Titans team that has been struggling, or Texans team that has been struggling mightily. They just got their first win of the season this game, too. I said it before, bro. This team's not good. The Titans. This team isn't good. This team, they're not doing it. They don't have enough around. What did Calvin Ridley do? They don't have enough around Cam Ward. Your number one receiver had two receptions for 30 yards. That's Calvin Ridley. And who was Eric Elick Ayomoro? I probably said your name wrong, bro. My fault. 2 receptions for 44 yards. Tony Pollard only rushed for 64 yards. This team is not good, bro. Cam Moore had a QBR of 27.4. You had the Houston Texans look like juggernauts, and they have not been. Now, that Algier dude, how do you say that man's name? I'm look it up. Azir Al-Sha'ar. That was kind of dirty, bro. That's yet another instance where you do something that's like, okay. But congratulations to the Houston Texans for beating the Titans 26-0. And the game that happened all the way on Thursday, and I wasn't able to record, the Seahawks beat the Arizona Cardinals 23-20. It goes back to mistakes, bro. The Cardinals had this game, at least in the overtime, and the freaking kicker wasn't able to put the ball in the landing zone. So instead of getting the ball wherever they got the ball, it was at the 40, which is much easier for a team to score. Like, I will say, shout out to Marvin Harrison. It was looking bad in the beginning. I think Kyler Murray threw 2 interceptions. I think one of them went all directly off of Marvin Harrison's hands, but he was able to catch a touchdown. Shout out to him. But what the issue is, not the issue, but the thing that I'm starting to see is anytime there's a close game, and I was thinking this while I was watching, I'm like, yo, Arizona Cardinals are about to do something. P.S. I wasn't that big a fan of their jerseys, the rivalry jersey, when it had like all the sand and stuff because they have sandstorms a lot in Arizona. I won't say I did like the cream. I did like the red popping off of the helmet. Like that was kind of wavy. I will say that. The jerseys, I don't know, but the red, like the color scheme and the red popping up, it was all right. The gradient, it was all right. Back to what I was saying. I was gonna say, yo, the Cardinals are about to. I kept saying this. The Cardinals are about to do something to mess this game up. They're about to do something to lose this game. Lo and behold, the kicker, which allowed the Seahawks to get into field goal range, and boom, without fail. I know it's a divisional rival, but come on now. congratulations to the Seahawks for beating the Arizona Cardinals 23-20. And last game to talk about on Sunday was the Patriots beating the Panthers 42-7 or 13. I think I am officially done being on the Bryce Young bandwagon. It's not benefiting me in the slightest, and he got thoroughly outplayed by Drake May. Clearly, that whole 30-0 against Atlanta was an anomaly. The Patriots aren't even that good of a team, and they scored 21 points in the second quarter. Bryce Young is not good. I was trying to hold out hope. He's not good. Plain and simple. Congratulations to the New England Patriots for... You know what? That also brings on a good question. No, he's not going to be the worst. But I think Bryce Young might land on one of those all-time bust lists. Being a number one overall pick, and I don't see him finishing the season. Playing like the way he's been playing, I don't see him finishing the season as a starting quarterback at all. He is god-awful. So, being the number one overall pick and maybe out the league in 3 years, and I don't know. That's been week 4, and obviously we have week 5 coming up, so we'll see. I want to talk about college for a second. Alabama beat the Georgia Bulldogs 24-21. I understand that there's different levels of football in college. Like, the talent level for the SEC is drastically different from the talent level of the Big 12. The talent level of the Big 10, which we'll talk about in a second, is much different than the talent level of the CUSA, you know. And Kirby Smart is a very good coach. My thing is this. When you're playing somebody that gets the better of you almost every time, when you have layups, you have to convert on those layups. The game was tight throughout the entirety. You get all the way down to, I think, the 5-yard line, down 21-24. Not only do you not kick the ball to tie the game, but you give it to the running back, who, if I'm not mistaken, lost. It was like 4th and 1. You don't give it to the running back. You don't give it to Chauncey Brown or Bowens. I'm sorry. You don't give it to Chauncey Bowens, who had 119 yards on the game. You give it to a dude that shouldn't have been in the game, and you lose yards. So I think you lost you lost yards. You didn't get the first down. So instead of tying the game, you're still down and you lose. After Georgia scored in third quarter, there was not another point scored in the game from either team. Alabama didn't score in the second half. when you have layups, you gotta, Kirby Smart is like, when you look at his record, 100 and something, and like 40 against every other team. When you go up against Alabama, I think he's 1 and something. Alabama, Georgia, you gotta take the layups, man. Gotta take the layups. Speaking of layups, let's have this uncomfortable conversation again. The whiteout. Penn State's crescendo. They hosted Oregon. And they lost to Oregon 30-24. Now, the conversation obviously is surrounding James Franklin. How James Franklin is now 4-21 against ranked opponents in the top 10. So if you have a 10 or lower in front of your name, you're more than likely beating James Franklin in the Penn State Nittany Lions. To bring for the contents, as the head coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions, James Franklin has never beat Oregon, Ohio State, or Michigan. A lot of times, while playing Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan, the Penn State Nittany Lions were ranked higher than them. I was having a conversation with somebody after the game because people know that I'm an Oregon fan, and I was elated, but I was having a conversation, and obviously the conversation swirling around this game was James Franklin if he should be fired. The same conversation that they were having about Ryan Day when he seemingly could not beat Michigan. And I don't know when was the last time Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes beat Michigan. However, I do know that they won the national championship last year. And we were talking, and I said, "Yo, is this going to cost James Franklin his job?" And they were saying, "Well, James Franklin is an exceptional coach. And James Franklin, if you look at his record outside of the top 10, he has one of the best records as a football head coach." And the question is kind of like the conversation you have as to, if not me, then who? If not James Franklin, then who? Who is out there that can turn the Penn State into a juggernaut more so than they are now? Because Penn State is a juggernaut. They just can't beat top-ranked teams. Drew Allard on cue threw an interception against Oregon. Drew Allard on cue threw an interception last year to seal the game against Notre Dame. Drew Allard on cue threw an interception in the Big Ten championship against Oregon last year. I'm not blaming Drew Allard. What I'm saying is, yeah, you would hope and want your record to be better than 4-21 against ranked teams inside the top 10, but it's like, is there anybody better than James Franklin for this team right now that's available? I don't know. But it is crazy that he's never beaten the top teams in the Big Ten. And you want to consider yourself a top-tier team, yet you can't beat – and Michigan, you can't beat those three. Now, they're probably going to beat Michigan. I don't know if they play Michigan this year. In fact, do they play Michigan this year? Let me see. Oh, God. So – they don't play Michigan this year. However, they have a shot. They have I don't know what Indiana's going to look like. when they get to Indiana, because I think Indiana plays Oregon next, and Oregon is the number 2 team. But they're going to have a shot maybe, because you got Ohio State and then Indiana, and you're going to Ohio State. So we'll see. But it's not looking promising. I'll just say that. So I don't think they should fire. I don't think they should fire James Franklin, but it's just like I am acknowledging the fact of, okay, well, this is yet another time where you can't win the big game, you know? So we'll see, man. Speaking of we'll see, and boy, so the WNBA playoffs have been going on, and they've been excellent. As the time of this recording, because it's Tuesday evening, early evening, I don't know the outcome of the Aces and Fever game. First and foremost, that has been an electrifying series. I thought that without all the players, without Caitlin Clark, without Sid, without Art, like I didn't think they had a chance to Fever. Shout out to Kelsey Mitchell. Shout out to Aaliyah Boston. They've been going crazy. And again, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. The game is tonight, so we'll see. But this WNBA playoffs, bro, if there's one thing that you can't do is you can't shoot yourself in the foot, especially on the big stage. This playoffs, as exciting and as good as it's been, has shown nothing but incompetence from the WNBA and incompetence from the refs. It seems like almost every game this playoffs has been affected by the refs. The shout out to the Phoenix Mercury. They took down the number 1 seed in the Lynx, and now the Mercury are waiting to face the winner of the Fever and the Aces. At the time of this recording, the Aces haven't played yet, or the Fever and Aces haven't played yet, but they're waiting for the winner of that to meet in the WNBA finals. But every single game in that Lynx Mercury series was marred by poor officiating. Cheryl Miller came out, who was the coach of the Lynx, came out and was just obliterated the coaching staff, which I agree that you can't do that. Like you can't go and you can't do that, especially as a coach. But to suspend her for a game and then fine her $15,000. On top of the fact of you suspend her for game 4, the winner you're down in the series, you suspend her for game 4, and Nafisa Collier got hurt when Alyssa Thomas blatantly fouled her, and she hurt her ankle, so she was out like that. What did you think was finna happen? Again, I think the WNBA playoffs have been exceptional, but it just seems like every single game has been a poor officiated game. Even when you talk about the Fever and the Aces, I don't know what the outcome of the game is going to be tonight, but what I do know is, bruh, how many times does Leah Boston have to throw them elbows and they don't call it? Most of the time they don't call it. She be throwing them elbows like it's nobody, like that's her specialty. Again, man, you can't keep doing this, bro. You have to. This is your product front and center. And as great as it's been, there has been asterisks because of just how bad the officiating has been. How do you suspend? How do you first fine her $15K and then suspend her for a pivotal game, especially when you're out your top player. I'm not upset with the fine. Okay, cool, fine her, yeah. But you're going to suspend the coach after losing their best player, and you think they had a shot of winning, which, shocker, they didn't win that game, and now they're sitting at home searching for answers. It's a poor look. It's a bad look. The product is a bad look. I remember when it came out that the NFL was using part-time refs, and it looked like it. And they changed that immediately. I don't know if the league can change this for the W, or I don't even know if they have to change it, but there should be no reason why almost every single playoff game this season has been affected by the refs. That's all I'm saying. But again, congratulations to the Phoenix Mercury. Again, at the time of this recording, I don't know the outcome of the Vegas Aces and Indiana Fever. So whoever wins that game will be meeting the Phoenix Mercury in the finals. So shout out to whoever wins. Speaking of winning, in the last topic, I'm not even going to stay on this for long, but how in God's name did the Mets not make the playoffs? I guess I'll end this episode with a question. How did they not make the playoffs? You were a top 3 highest payroll in the league. You signed Juan Soto. There was a point in time where you were the hottest team in baseball. This season. You had Francisco Lindor. You had Pete Alonso. Like, you have, roster-wise, one of the best rosters in baseball. It's already bad enough that you needed the Reds to lose and y'all to win. I think the Reds lost. So all y'all needed to do was win. And if I'm not mistaken, it was against the Mariners. I don't remember. But I do remember that you didn't win. Let me see, actually. Y'all needed. Yep, the Reds were playing the Milwaukee Brewers, and they lost. So all y'all needed to do was beat let me see who they play. Y'all need to beat the Mariners, Miami Mariners? Yeah. No, that's Seattle Mariners. Miami Marlins. Y'all couldn't even do that. Third highest payroll in the league. Didn't even make the playoffs. Signed Juan Soto, who was just in the World Series a year ago. Didn't even make the playoffs. On top of that, now Pete Alonso opted out of his contract, and now he's a free agent. Or will be a free agent. You're talking about epic collapses, bro. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, a link in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely, definitely means a lot. Also, for the DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, I'm trying to get as many subscribers for that as well. I'm trying to grow the podcast overall, and I cannot do it without you guys' help. So please follow, subscribe, comment, share, rate. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate you guys. Also, for my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I post pretty much daily there. That's where you get reels, extended reels, stories. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. You want me to know whatever you're talking about, and you either agree or don't agree. I appreciate with everything. Again, keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. Just follow and leave a comment. Until next time, much love.